Tonight, Australia pauses funding to a key UN agency in Gaza over alleged links to Hamas attacks. Threat eases. The territory avoids another tropical low, but river levels remain high. Brick by brick, the Darwin showcase where your imagination is the only limitation. And against all odds, the West Indies pull off an extraordinary upset at the Gabba. Good evening, Isabella Tolhurst with ABC News. Australia and 8 other countries have suspended funding the main UN agency providing aid in Gaza after allegations emerged some staff were involved in the October 7 terrorist attacks. The agency's chief has hit back, describing the funding pause as a collective form of punishment against Palestinians. It comes as a deal edges closer that could see a 2-month pause in fighting and secure the release of the remaining hostages.
Anger on the streets of Tel Aviv as Israeli police block the protesting crowds. Mounted officers confront the fury. Some are wrestled to the ground. The protesters, including the families of over 100 hostages still in Gaza, calling on their leaders to resign. They say their government isn't doing enough to bring their loved ones home.
We need to bring them back home now. We don't have a time anymore.
Hamas has released new vision of Israeli hostages filmed under duress in Gaza. 1 nurse and 2 19-year-old soldiers kidnapped on October 7. There is some new hope. US-led negotiators are edging closer to an agreement that would see Israel pause fighting for 2 months in exchange for the release of all the hostages. But until any deal is struck, the misery for the people in Gaza continues. The biggest UN agency providing life-saving relief has come under scrutiny. UNRWA has been forced to sack several members of its staff for alleged involvement in the Hamas terrorist attack of October 7. Israeli intelligence has reportedly produced evidence that shows the UNRWA staff providing use of its vehicles and facilities. The allegations are being investigated, but Australia, along with 8 other countries, has immediately suspended funding for the agency. Foreign Minister Penny Wong labelled the allegations deeply concerning. UNRWA's chief has hit back, saying the withholding of funding is shocking and amounts to a form of collective punishment. More than 80% of Gazans have fled their homes and they're still on the move.
We've been displaced for around 115 days, and now suddenly flyers dropped saying that certain blocks should evacuate immediately. In such weather and with little kids, where can we go?
UNRWA is pleading with countries to resume funding, warning a lifeline to 2 million people is being cut.
As he faces calls to resign, Israel's Prime Minister is also facing considerable pressure from the White House to ease his military campaign in Gaza. Here's Global Affairs editor John Lyons.
The pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu here in Jerusalem is extraordinary. He's under pressure from the families of the hostages in Gaza who fear that their relatives could be killed by Israel's saturation bombing. He's under pressure from President Biden, facing re-election, who risks losing the Arab-American vote in 3 key swing states. And he's under pressure from the people here, the Israeli public, who are increasingly asking, what is this war actually achieving? Something has to give, and something has to give quickly.
Iran-backed Houthis have fired on an American warship in a major escalation of the conflict in the Red Sea. Video has also emerged of a British-linked oil tanker being struck, with the US warning of a broader conflict erupting in the region.
A fire erupts on board a British-linked oil tanker after it's struck by a Houthi missile. With 23 crew on board, the Marlin Luanda issues a distress call, with deep concern for its flammable cargo.
We had actually lost the hope that we won't be able to fight this fire.
The Indian Navy responds with backup from the US, getting the fire under control after several hours.
These guys were really tough. They have really done a tremendous job, and hats off to the Indian Navy.
It's the latest ship to be struck by the Iranian-backed Houthis, who've been attacking vessels transiting through the Red Sea in support of Palestinians in Gaza. The Houthis say this latest attack is in response to American-British aggression and follows retaliatory airstrikes from both countries inside Yemen just weeks ago. An American destroyer patrolling the Gulf of Aden, USS Carney, was also targeted but shot down the projectile. The incident marking the first time a US warship has been directly attacked.
We can't predict exactly how any one of these groups is going to respond. Do they want a broader conflict? Do you want us in a full-scale war?
The US is downplaying the escalation, and China is urging Iran to help rein in the attacks, as the Middle East grapples with its worst maritime conflict in decades. Tom Joyner, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The Northern Territory looks like it will avoid the worst of the tropical low formed from ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily. The system was forecast to cross the Territory border in the coming days, but the latest mapping has the low tracking southwards in Queensland instead. That's decreased the chance of heavy rains for the Territory's central east, but many rivers remain flooded and a number of roads cut off. The main highway between the Northern Territory and Western Australia, the Victoria Highway, remains closed between the Bunteen Highway and WA's border. It's not expected to reopen until late this week. Meanwhile, Outback Queensland is being transformed by ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily as it dumps heavy rain on a usually dry landscape. Roads have gone under and some towns are cut off, but graziers are celebrating. The band of rain stretches down to the southeast corner and the forecast is for more to come, with the weather system likely to hover over large parts of the state into next week.
In parts of Outback Queensland, the floodwaters stretch to the horizon. It's a welcome sight for those on the land.
Without rain, this country struggles, and I know they've been getting the lockdown south, and different parts of the state look at it differently, but we love it out here.
Some properties near Winton recorded more than 300 millimetres of rain in 24 hours. It's cut roads, not that locals are complaining.
Pretty happy. Lovely to see.
At Springshaw, west of Rockhampton, overnight storms lit up the sky, dumping rain and transforming the morning walk. The remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily have largely stalled over the state's northwest, meaning more falls are on the way.
Well, certainly a watch point for Western Queensland, with a protracted significant rain and flood event likely.
In its wake, some communities remain cut off. This bridge into Georgetown in the Gulf Country collapsed before the rain hit, but floodwaters have made a temporary fix more challenging. And in Townsville, crews are working to reconnect tens of thousands of customers who've been without power in heatwave conditions for several days. In the state's southeast, it's been hot too, with some areas recording their highest overnight temperatures in nearly 30 years. But by morning, there was some relief. More than 200 mils was recorded in some parts, with the potential for more to come.
Certainly a risk of 50 to 100 mil broadly over parts of the southeast in its vicinity. In fact, localised falls in excess of 200 mil could be possible.
For those eager for sunshine, they'll have to wait. Simon Cullen, ABC News, Brisbane.
The Prime Minister is confident his revised Stage 3 tax cuts will pass Parliament without further tweaks. People earning between $45,000 and $150,000 will get an extra $800 a year compared to the previous plan. Those on $200,000 will still get a cut, but it will be roughly halved, down to $4,500. The changes still need to pass Parliament, with discussions underway with the Greens and Crossbench.
This is our plan. We will put it to the Parliament. We're putting it through, we will put it first to the House of Representatives. We will put it to the Senate. And I'm very, very confident that people will look at the two plans which are there.
Lego fans of all ages have turned out for the first Tropo Bricks Expo, with an array of dazzling creations from Darwin's budding master builders on show. Organisers say today's event was built piece by piece by a dedicated community who have big plans for more Lego events in the future.
It's the sound of young minds at work, building weird and wonderful creations with what's at hand.
I made some ocean and it's next to the grass. You can drive on water. You can also fly with wings. I build robots.
What other kind of pieces do you need to build a robot, do you think?
Any pieces.
Any pieces? Wow.
Hundreds of thousands of tiny bricks were brought in for the very first Darwin Lego Expo, where the young and young at heart showed off the results of hours spent poring over instructions and digging through tubs of pieces. Some creations come straight out of the box, while others required only imagination and some careful handling.
Well, I had to carry it downstairs to get it to the car. And before that, I had to move it to a different room in the house because my room was getting repainted.
For long-time fans of the iconic coloured bricks, inspiration for a new model or building technique can come from anywhere.
I'm a carpenter. We do a lot of roofs. I see a cool structured roof. That makes me want to build a cool Japanese temple with a nice roof on it, something like that.
The event itself, a passion project for a dedicated group of adult fans of Lego, or AFOLs for those in the know, who want to build upon today's turnout with more events.
This is our first. We plan to do it again in July, August, repeat, and gauge which is going to be our main event and our pop-up event for the year.
Even though it says ages 9 and 10 on the box, there are just as many adults excited by today's creations as there are kids.
Lego's become a lot more than just for children, it's for the big kids as well.
We weren't into Lego until COVID, and being in lockdown, I was going crazy, so I bought a few Lego sets.
Today's event might have some inspired to go home and raid Dad's collection.
Dad has more Lego now. There's one at home and also it's so much gooder and it can float on real water.
Proof you're never too young or old. Oliver Chaseling, ABC News.
18 months after cannabis was decriminalised in Thailand, the new government has vowed to end its recreational use. Authorities want to restrict it to medicinal purposes only, releasing a draft bill which outlines hefty fines and prison sentences for offenders. Doctors have welcomed the move, but the owners of the thousands of dispensaries that have sprung up and the farmers who supply them are worried. But as Southeast Asia correspondent Lauren Day reports, many say it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle.
What was once unimaginable is now unavoidable. 18 months after Thailand became the first country in Asia to decriminalise cannabis, more than 1 million people have registered to grow it and over 6,000 dispensaries have opened to sell it.
It's kind of like cowboy a little bit at the moment that everyone is doing kind of like whatever they want. Even like as a company, I think we're looking forward to kind of like a little bit of tightening up.
Pasit Chulajata had been working at a cannabis farming business since the drug was legalised for medicinal purposes in 2018. But even the budding industry itself was shocked when it was decriminalised.
Honestly, we were as surprised. Even, as a person that's been in the industry, we were really, really surprised.
The new government has now released draft legislation which would end recreational use and limit it to medicinal purposes and crack down on so-called cannabis cowboys.
There's been some negative pushback, but I think the government is on the verge to kind of tighten it up, which is going to help, protect people that needs to be protected, like young kids.
The move has been welcomed by doctors who say they're dealing with the impacts of the weed boom.
Tea time of the patient go to the hospital because of the side effect of the cannabis.
Dr. Smith is a forensic toxicologist and part of his job is screening dead bodies for traces of illicit drugs. At his hospital, in the first 3 months after legalisation, 126 people were admitted after using cannabis. 7 of them were intubated, 1 died.
The cannabis is not perfectly safe. someone have the side effect to the cannabis, like the psychosis or something like that. And someone use it and have like the heart attack and die. Cannabis or weed, can't kill people. No way, man.
Dispensary managers like Top believe some of the health claims are exaggerated, but he agrees some regulation is needed.
We need more like a real action from the government, what we can do or what we cannot do, or what we can really sell or what we cannot sell.
It's hard to walk down the streets of Bangkok without seeing or smelling this booming industry. It was estimated that by 2025 it'd be worth about 2 billion Australian dollars, but it's unclear what these new regulations will mean for business.
I think Thailand has come quite a bit too far, for everything to go back, and I think the government kind of know that as well. And I think we can do really well, to help to use cannabis as to boost the economy, and I think they also know that.
Top says his business will comply with any new laws, but it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle.
It's about the love, about the passion, and then about the sharing. If you are the real smoker, if you are you call the cannabis lover, you will know what I'm talking about, my man. You will know, brah.
The Thai Cabinet will now assess the draft legislation and public submissions before the bill goes before Parliament. Lauren Day, ABC News, Bangkok.
The majority of economists are predicting the Reserve Bank to start cutting interest rates later this year. But as Alan Kohler explains, a unique problem confronting Australia could see borrowers waiting another year for any rate relief.
The big economic question for 2024 is whether the Reserve Bank will start cutting interest rates this year. Futures market traders and most economists think it will. I'm not so sure about that, but what does the RBA itself think? Well, its most recent economic forecasts assume that interest rates will be 1% lower than they are now by the end of 2025. They don't say when that process begins, but I'd say we're talking next year. So what were those economic forecasts for the end of 2024? Inflation, 3.3%, down from 5.4. Unemployment, 4.2%, up from 3.9. GDP growth, 2%, down from 2.1. Now, if the Reserve Bank thinks it's going to make those numbers by the end of the year, there'll probably be rate cuts. If they don't, there won't be. It's as simple as that.
What's not so simple is Australia's unique problem. Although the Reserve Bank of Australia has hiked interest rates less than the US and the UK, our mortgage rates overall have gone up much more because we've got more variable rate loans than anyone else. As a result, there's been a huge increase in the number of Australians going backwards. Meanwhile, our population is growing faster than anyone else's, creating the illusion of economic growth, even though there are plenty of people having recessions of their own. So Australia's interest rates will be cut less than most countries.
But look, we'll get inflation down without a recession, and that's rare and good, as long as you're not one of those having a personal recession.
The Australian Open culminates tonight as Russia's Daniil Medvedev takes on Italian Jannik Sinner in the men's final at Melbourne Park. Medvedev is vying for his second Grand Slam title and he's made a good start to the campaign, taking the first set 6-3 over the young Italian. Moments ago, the Russian was up 2-1 in the second set. Meanwhile, Aryna Sabalenka spent her night celebrating after winning back-to-back singles titles. And Matt Ebden continued Australia's dominance in men's doubles when he won the final alongside 43-year-old partner Rohan Bopanna. This morning, Sabalenka paraded her silverware in front of the media and fans in Melbourne.
Guys, watch out.
Cheers to the champ. Showered in glory 2 years running, the Australian Open Queen posed at the Royal Exhibition Gardens, embracing a trophy her and her team have barely put down.
I mean, of course it was my idea. I put them under pressure to make this video happen.
Sabalenka does things her own way. and says prioritising having fun has been key to her success.
Yeah, I have, I would say, the craziest team. And as I said on the interview, we all had a little drink.
On the court, though, Sabalenka is ruthless.
Wow.
Her powerful win over China's Qin Wenjing put a full stop on a perfect tournament in which she did not drop a set.
Sabalenka defends the title.
The star Belarusian became the first woman to defend her title in more than a decade. Sabalenka paid tribute to her late father. Together, they set a goal of winning 2 Grand Slams before she turned 25.
You're my biggest motivation, and everything I'm doing for you.
Zheng's disappointment was palpable, but the 21-year-old will break into the top 10 tomorrow as her star at home and abroad continues to rise.
It's my first final and I'm feeling a little bit pity, but that's how it is.
And an Australian has tasted title success this year. Matt Ebden and India's Rohan Bopanna claimed the doubles crown, winning in straight sets. At 43 years old, Bopanna is the oldest man in the Open era to win a major men's doubles title.
You definitely, got to know how old I am, I'm sure.
Age truly really is not even a number for this guy.
Ebden's victory made it 3 consecutive years of Australian men lifting the doubles trophy. Tom Maddox, ABC News, Melbourne Park.
The West Indies have pulled off a historic win, beating Australia by 8 runs in the second cricket test at the Gabba in their first test victory in Australia since 1997. Second gamer Shamar Joseph, playing with a foot injury, tore through Australia's batters, taking 7 wickets as Australia was bowled out for 207. Steve Smith carried his bat for the hosts, finishing unbeaten on 91.
After Australia lost 2 wickets late on day 3, day 4 was set for a fascinating tussle. The hosts requiring 156 runs, the West Indies needing to take 8 wickets, assuming the rain stayed away. The tourists kept the scoring down in the opening half hour, but then things loosened in the field.
Oh no.
In humid conditions, Steve Smith and Cameron Green received numerous drinks.
More drinks.
Which the umpires monitored closely to keep the game moving.
I think umpire Mannon's going to come down and say, hurry up, boys.
The introduction of Shamar Joseph, who was playing with a toe injury, got things going.
Catch it! No, too high, too quick. 4 more.
Green looked comfortable in the middle as Australia closed in on victory.
That's a classic straight.
Until Joseph cracked the door open for the tourists.
Oh, Bo, that's a ripper.
That brought Travis Head to the crease following his first innings golden duck.
Oh, it's King Bear for Travis Head. Shamar Joseph, can you believe what we're seeing here at the Gabba?
Smith's time as an opener has been underwhelming, but the veteran showed a glimpse of what he can offer with a well-constructed half-century. But Joseph kept his side's hopes alive.
Yes, he's done it! It's away, big catch, big wicket!
With the game on a knife's edge, Alzari Joseph dropped Nathan Lyon before removing him with the very next ball. Smith tried to club Australia to victory. But at the other end, Josh Hazlewood couldn't keep out Shamar Joseph.
I feel like we win the series. Even though it's 1-1, I feel like we win the entire series with this test. And it's really amazing for my teammates. Must give up another shout out to them. They're really encouraging. And, I'm glad that I make them proud.
It's the West Indies' first test win in Australia since 1997. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
South Africa's women have secured a first ever victory over Australia in any format, defeating the hosts by 6 wickets in their second T20 international in Canberra. The Proteas restricted Australia to a total of 6 for 142. Grace Harris, the top scorer, with a late cameo of 31 runs. Skipper Laura Woolvart anchored the innings for South Africa with the bat, scoring an unbeaten half-century. Chloe Tryon knocked the winning boundary in the 19th over, with the breakthrough victory coming after 23 matches over 27 years. The multi-format series continues with a third T20 international in Hobart on Tuesday. Australia will take on England in the final of the Netball Nations Cup after a clean sweep of victories in the pool stage. Australia faced Uganda for the first time in history in their final group game and were challenged early by one of world netball's big improvers. Australia settled from there though, with Donald Wallam's accurate shooting leading them to a 14-point win. In the later game, a key intercept by England in the dying seconds helped them clinch a dramatic 1-point win over New Zealand. That set up a rematch of last year's World Cup final with Australia. The Socceroos will take on Indonesia in their Asian Cup round of 16 clash in Qatar tonight. Graham Arnold's men finished on top of Group B with victories over India and Syria, as well as a draw with Uzbekistan. The Socceroos are aiming to lift the trophy for a second time, having won it first in 2015 in Sydney. Arnold says Asian tournaments are getting harder and his side are wary of Indonesia.
Asia is growing. And the Asian tournament's getting harder and harder. And Indonesia, as you said, it's not a David v Goliath battle. It's two teams that will go out there and give it their best.
The best in Australia's country music scene and their fans were all in one place last night, Tamworth. The industry's Night of Nights marks the end of the 10-day-long country music festival, and one of Tamworth's very own was in the spotlight, winning 3 golden guitars. Our reporter Max Tillman was there.
It's the pinnacle of Australian country music, capping off 10 days of boots, bluegrass and bush ballads.
Between the future and the past.
The best of the best dusting off their akubras, and some donning double denim for the 50-second celebration. For Tasmanian berry farmers Nick and Tom Wolfe, the big night ended with 3 gongs, including album and duo of the year. It's enough for the brothers to share around.
The Wolfe Brothers!
It's amazing. I'll have to put a mantelpiece in now.
But it was one of Tamworth's homegrown talents, Felicity Urquhart, who attracted the biggest cheer on the night. She claimed 3 awards for her collaboration with her partner Josh Cunningham. Their hit Size Up, named Song and Single of the Year. It brings her golden guitar count to 16.
There's a whole shelf at home with like a bunch of these on them. I've never actually touched one. This is the first time for me.
You could dust them occasionally.
Max Jackson claimed Best New Talent, beating out a strong pool of up-and-comers.
I love country music with my whole heart, and this is the most wonderful recognition from the industry.
55,000 people have flocked here over the past 10 days. That's almost the same as Tamworth's entire population. Not even blistering heatwave conditions could kill the mood.
The festival is expected to bring in more than $50 million in revenue to the region, and as the stages and stalls are brought down and the artists and buskers begin to pack up, Tamworth is already gearing up to do it all again next year. Max Tillman, ABC News, Tamworth.
Time for the weather now, and tonight's viewer photo has been sent in by Damien Howard, taken at Nightcliff Jetty. A colder, cloudy day across the top end, with many locations not reaching 30 degrees, while it was hot and sunny in the centre. It was 28 degrees today in Darwin, 29 in Jabiru and 26 in Bachelor. Zooming out, Katherine reached a top of 29, while Nhulunbuy hit 33. Hotter further south though, Tennant Creek and Alice Springs reaching 38. On the satellite, thick clouds extend over the tropics in Queensland near extropical cyclone Kirrily, while a trough lies across central NT and Queensland, and a weak ridge extends across South and Central Australia. Taking a look around the country tomorrow, 29 and stormy in Brisbane, Sydney heading for 29, Canberra 32, Melbourne to hit 28, sunshine in Adelaide 31 and Perth 29. Around the Territory tomorrow, Alice Springs headed for 40 degrees, 43 in Yulara and 40 in Tennant Creek. Further north, Katherine to hit 34, 31 in Nhulunbuy and 39 in Borroloola. And in the west, storms about, 31 in Darwin, 32 in Jabiru and Bodair. Moderate flood warnings remain for the Daly River as it continues to rise in some areas, and a flood watch is still in place for parts of the central eastern NT. The morning high tide tomorrow will be at 7:23 and winds will reach up to 15 knots off Darwin. The sun will rise tomorrow tomorrow at 6:38 and you can watch it set at 7:21. And looking at the week ahead, possible heavy rain tomorrow in Darwin, but easing midweek, and in Alice Springs, very hot conditions with gusty winds in store. And that's ABC News for this Sunday night. Thank you for your company. Good night.